Hey guys, it's the Kitchen Table Magician here. Going to talk about Modern Masters 2017 drafting a little bit. I had the opportunity to finally draft this set and open some packs and get my hands on it. I hadn't, believe it or not, it's been out a week and a half, and this was the first time I'd even touched it. So, got together with some friends. There was 6 of us. We had a great time. Cracked a whole box of this. We each drafted 4 packs because there was just 6 of us, so that was a nice even split. And it made for a nice card pool for everybody to really work with. You could actually make a few mistakes in your draft and make some corrections because you knew you're going to have that extra pack to maybe straighten things out a little bit. I'm going to make a few comments about the actual box of Modern Masters itself that we did open. I've watched multiple box openings on other YouTube channels, and I got to say the box we opened was a dud. The EV was very, very low. The most valuable card in there was an Arid Mesa, and that was the only fetch land in the box. There was a Blood Moon, and there was a Basilisk Collar, and then everything else in the box was just, you know, the $2-3 rares. There was one foily vampire and one other foily kind of junk rare. So in that regards, the EV of the box we figured was around 150 if you're going to try and flip everything that you possibly could. So it was very, very low. Also, another comment I want to make about the box itself. Now, obviously, when you buy Magic cards, it's a gamble, and you're going to get some boxes like that. That's part of the deal, and we're not salty about that. But we were also unimpressed with the print quality overall. The quality of the product in this particular box was very, very poor overall. Some of the cards were not collated correctly. We actually had packs with cards upside down in the packs, and along with right side up cards. We also had the foiling process on a lot of the foils was really, really bad. The foiling, it bled the ink, I think, somehow. The words were kind of blotchy and runny, and I don't know if anybody's else run into this. And then also, a lot of the print quality of the ink itself was very faded on a large number of the cards. They weren't as crisp as you would expect for a high-end product like this. So the overall quality of the box we also thought was incredibly poor. So we were figuring that this is probably the startup on a Monday morning, or probably the last box printed on Friday, and everybody had already checked out for the day or hadn't quite checked in for their week yet. But that's all I'm going to say about that. As far as the experience itself, the draft experience was fantastic. We had a blast with the cards that were in the box. It was a lot of synergy, and everybody was able to build a really fun and solid deck to play with. I drafted Grixis, so I drafted black, blue, red, which is out of my norm. I don't normally draft red and black, so I wasn't as familiar with those colors. Even though I had looked over this set before going into this, I hadn't really studied the red and black. So I was a little out of my comfort zone doing it, but I had a blast, and this was my deck, and I'll break this down for you guys and show you what I actually put in this thing. So like I said, we drafted 4 packs. So that left my sideboard pretty thick. I'm not going to run through everything that's in it, but I had a lot to work with, and it was really hard to weed some of this out. And I wasn't the only one that had problems with this. You'll see I have quite a bit of white in here and white mana fixing. In the early part of the draft, I was actually swinging a little bit white. I was going to try and go a little bit token wide, but then it just didn't work out, and I had to change gears a little bit, and I started going blue. There's a couple of green cards in here too that I didn't play with. Alright, so the actual deck build, it's a 40 card build, and when you're playing with 40 cards, you try to play with like 25 of them are cards that you drafted, and then 15 lands. So that's kind of what I did here. And the first thing when you're drafting is look for the bombs. You want to play the bombs. So I drafted the Basilisk Collar for a bomb, which worked out really well for me in this. My deck is early game rush, and then has got some staying power to get into the mid game and some mid game finishers, and that's what I built. Basilisk Collar was a really good tool in that, in both aspects of that game, early and mid game. Okay, bombs as far as creatures go. Anything with power 4 or more that's got some resiliency or evasion is very good. So this was another bomb I picked up. This is Carnage Gladiator 4/2, and it can regenerate and has a little side bonus of being able to deal a little extra damage as well. The other bomb I ran is Grixis Slave Driver, 4/4. When it dies, I get a 2/2 black zombie token to replace it, and it does unearth for 4. So again, it dies, you get another creature in its place, you can bring it back from the graveyard. It is very resilient, hard to deal with, it has a lot of staying power. And that's what I was trying to go for. Alright, this is Broodmate Dragon. It is not Grixis, it is Jund. So this is the only green mana symbol in my deck. But I could not pass this up. I opened it pack 3. It was in 2 of my colors at that point, but I knew I couldn't pass it up, so I grabbed it. It was a very good decision, and I was able to fix my mana enough to actually play with this. So what you get here is a 4/4 flyer, and it comes into play with a 4/4 flying dragon token as well. So this is a lot to deal with. You can go wide, and you get 2 bombs out of it. And then the biggest bomb in here is the Desecration Demon, 6/6 flying for 4. This is incredibly aggressive and can just pin your opponent right out of a game. So those are the bombs I ran. I didn't do as well as on removal as I had liked. For just straight up removal, I was able to pull a Terminate, and I put in 2 Chandra's Outrages, and that's really all I pulled for removal, so I didn't do as good in that department as I would have liked, but it was enough. It was enough to keep me in the game and keep games going my way. Being able to take out an opponent's creature and deal a couple of points of damage to them at the same time is very tempo-y. It's actually very good. So then we get into some creatures. I knew I was going to go heavy on the creatures because I was going to run a more of an aggressive style deck, and I wanted to get that creature rush in. And so I ran a lot heavier on creatures. I'm going to start with the Spire Monitors because these kind of double over as potential removal as well as being evasive creatures because they have flash. So you can hold back. Somebody rushes in with something, you can flash this in, play, and do a block and a kill on surprise. So this kind of fits 2 things. This is a very good card for control-y decks too, but I thought this was a good fit for my Grix. So I actually was able to grab 2 of these. And then for earlier game stuff, I have a Tandem Lookout, which is nice if you can get in for the damage. You can actually get some card draw off of this. And he's only 3 mana, so that's not too bad. I pulled 4 Dregscape Zombies, and this guy was a rock star. He got in early, he got in fast, and when he died, he came back. And this was hard to deal with. This was a rush of Dregscape Zombies. I pulled, I think, everyone that was in the mix. I don't think I saw another one that was in the mix. I got them all. For 3 mana here, this isn't a creature, but it creates a creature token, so I count it. And it has flashbacks. You can potentially create 2 creature tokens with this, so you get a nice early game, and then later in the game you can create a token that's of something bigger. So I had a lot of ways to my cards. Just I used a lot twice. You get them, they die, and you get more use out of them after they're in your graveyard. So the deck was very resilient. It just kept coming back from the graveyard. Seagate Oracle, this is just a nice little muddle up the battlefield and get some card draw out of it. So this is good. Sidrax's Spectre, this is a great evasive 3/2 flyer. It forces opponents to discard cards, and it unearths. So again, my deck is just very resilient. Cathari Bomber, I have 2 of these, 2/2 flying. If they hit an opponent, then you get some goblin tokens out of it, and they unearth. So they just come back for more. So that was my creature base. It was very resilient, lots of unearth. Again, this is not normal for me to draft this style of a deck, so I was a little out of my comfort zone doing it, but I had a blast playing with it. Compulsive Research, I just rounded the deck off with just some good support. So Compulsive Research for some card draw. I pulled a Serum Visions for some card draw. Okay, this was a game finisher. Teleportal. I underestimated it in my the first one I picked, but then I saw a couple more come through, so I grabbed another one. I did main deck them both, and wow, am I glad I did this. This was a game ender a lot of the times, because you would usually play it for the overload, and you could pull all that unearthed stuff out of your graveyard and then overload and just finish the game. So I have 2 of these, and so that's basically the deck. And it did very well. It's very resilient. It did have trouble against blue-white control. One of the decks that was in that mix yesterday was a very, very heavy blue-white control with some fringe in 2 other colors. and she had multiple ways to just completely lock you out of a game no matter what you did. So she wound up coming in first out of the 6 of us yesterday. And then I struggled against blue-white golems as well, because he was able to just get wide faster than I could get done what I needed to do. But other than that, it did very well. I was able to maintain the rest of the board. All right, so when building a 40-card deck, you want to run 15 lands. Or if you can get some ramp, like some signets, I count each of these as like a half land. So what I did is I ran 14 lands and 2 signets, and that counts as my 15 lands, in my opinion. So I ran 24 cards, 2 signets, and 14 lands. And when I drafted the Broodmate Dragon, I then had to make sure I picked up some ways to play it. So I actually passed up a Vampire Nighthawk to get one of these guild gates, and I passed up a Dragon Fodder to get one of these guild gates. I was hoping there were 2 Dragon Fodders floating around, and I was hoping to grab one or both, but I did pass them up to get these guild gates because I knew I wanted that dragon in my deck, and I had to have a way to do it. So I fixed it with that. So I had 2 of those, an Izzet and a Dimir guild gate. There were 2 Crumbling Necropolises floating around the mix. I made sure I got one of them, and then the rest is my basic lands. So that was my Grixis Modern Masters build. Had a lot of fun with it, had a lot of fun playing with it, and would love to draft this set again. Thanks for watching.